morning, folks. This is Megan Aki at MEPC. Thank you all for joining our webinar this morning. We are just going to wait 1 or 2 minutes to let folks file into the webinar, and then we'll get started. Great. Well, for those who just joined, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Megan Aki, and I am the Clean Energy and Climate Systems Manager at MEPC. And we're really excited to have you all join us this morning for our webinar on the options around electric and alternative fuel vehicles that are on MEPC and the Greater Boston Police Council's vehicle contract. So we got a lot to get into today, so I'm going to dive right in as folks are still trickling in. Just to go over a little bit of Zoom housekeeping, we are recording today's webinar, so anything that you put in the Q&A or the chat box will be public record, so just keep that in mind. And the slides and recording will make available afterwards as well if you want to view this later or share it with colleagues. In addition, we'll be using the Q&A box on Zoom, so if you look in sort of the lower half of your screen, you should see a Q&A function where you can ask questions there. We should have about 10 to 15 minutes after the presentations from the vendors on the contract to take any questions that you have using that feature. But feel free to ask your questions throughout, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar, or if we can, try to answer them as we go through the presentations. So I think that's it for housekeeping. I did just want to go through the agenda real quick. So I'm going to kick us off with a little bit of just context setting information about electrifying your fleet. We have a couple of poll questions to get to know folks who are joining us today on the webinar this morning. My colleague Kelsey is going to give some background on the GBPC contract and how municipalities can use this as a purchasing mechanism. And then we'll get to the bulk of today, which is some rapid fire presentations from all of the vendors that are on the contract, or most of the vendors that are on the contract, to learn a little bit more about the particular vehicles that they have available. So hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up in timely fashion and have some time at the end there for everyone's questions. So with that, I will just dive into things. So if you do have any technical issues or things throughout, feel free to send a chat to either myself or my colleagues at MEPC, Allison Felix or Kelsey Champley. So that is also available to you. Great. So to start off, for those who aren't familiar with MEPC, we're the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and we serve the 101 cities and towns in the Greater Boston area. And you can see this map here shows that our service area is basically 495 into the city of Boston. We work with communities on a wide variety of planning topics. I work in our clean energy department that works in particular with communities on clean energy and climate planning. But I'm also joined with my colleagues from our transportation and municipal collaboration departments who we work with a lot on our fleet electrification work with communities. So just to kind of ground us in some base information for today's conversation, when we're talking about alternative fuels, there are this sort of list here captures all the different ways that you could think about alternative fuels, but in the context of MAPC's work with communities, we're particularly focused on electricity as an alternative fuel because of the potential to have zero tailpipe emissions and combine that with your local climate goals. It provides the largest opportunity to reduce your emissions from your fleet and work towards a better climate outcome for our communities. And looking at the electric vehicle market overall out into the future, we see anticipated large growth in the market. It's something that's been slowly picking up over the years, but we hope to see an even greater availability of different makes and models and getting into different vehicle classes as well as we look forward and see also those battery prices coming down and making them more cost competitive with internal combustion engine vehicles. And this is just a couple of news clips that have come out in recent months, and I think just to kind of show the momentum across the nation and within our state of Massachusetts in particular as well, looking out to 2035 as a milestone where folks are starting to really commit to electric vehicles as an option for fleet electrification. And then when it comes to our work with municipalities and how we're approaching helping communities transition their vehicles and their fleets over to greener options, we're looking sort of beyond just the OEM vehicle replacement options, but technologies like anti-idling, different ways you can retrofit or upfit existing vehicles to run as hybrid, and then considering also the fueling infrastructure that's needed as you're moving over to an electric fleet. How do you meet those needs in terms of charging and having access to that for your fleet? So those are the slew of things that we're working on with municipalities. And to kind of process map out how you might start approaching this question of fleet electrification, we recommend kind of starting out with assessing where you're at with your municipal fleet and what infrastructure needs you might have to start replacing different vehicles with electric options in the future, figuring out where there are suitable applications for these different types of green vehicle technologies within your fleet, trying to tap into as much funding as you can and applying for grant opportunities. And then once you have made those changes in your fleet and started to adopt some electric vehicles, figuring out systems and ways that you can monitor how successfully those are being used in your fleet to save energy and reduce emissions. And we'll talk more in detail about kind of those purchasing options that are available to you as well through the GBPC contract. And so just to kind of wrap up, throughout that process that I have outlined, MAPC and myself and my colleagues are here to support communities in navigating that process, whether that's helping you look through your vehicle fleet and assessing opportunities for different types of alternative fuel vehicles, kind of advising and providing greater resources on emerging technologies, and supporting communities in connecting to those different funding opportunities, both in terms of funding for the vehicles, but also charging infrastructure and navigating the landscape of different incentives that are available here in Massachusetts. So I won't go in depth into the funding opportunities today, but happy to answer questions that folks have at the end as well about that. So with that, I'm going to launch a quick poll so we can get to know who's joining us today. Excited to see about 25 folks on the webinar this morning. So let's see, I'm going to launch this poll. So I'll give folks just a couple of seconds to respond to this. Hopefully this will be an easy question, but we just want to know sort of who you are, what best describes your role. And we have municipal government, state regional government, local volunteer committee members, vendor or private sector representatives, or other if you fall outside of those categories. So I'm seeing the results coming in and most folks have responded. Awesome, just give another second for folks to respond. Great. So you should be seeing the results now, I think, if I share the results. So we have, most folks coming into the webinar from municipal government, but another good chunk of folks from state and regional government, as well as local volunteer committees. So thank you all for joining us. And it's great to see that we've got a lot of municipal folks on the line to learn about these different opportunities. So I have one more poll. Let's see if I can get that one up. Here we go. So this one is a two-parter. There are two questions. So the first one, we'd love to hear from you in terms of what types of electric or hybrid electric vehicles have you already deployed in your fleet? So what have you already done? And for this, you can select multiple options. So select as many as apply to you in terms of vehicles that you've electrified in your fleet. And we have options for sedan passenger vehicles, SUVs, police cruisers, vans or shuttle buses, school buses, utility vehicles, maintenance or landscaping vehicles, or if you haven't started out at all, feel free to respond with none. And then the second question is more future looking. So what type of vehicle are you most interested in replacing with an electric or hybrid option in the upcoming year? And for this, I just ask you to pick one and let us know which one you're most interested in exploring. I'll give folks a couple more seconds to respond. This one requires a little bit more thought, I think. Still waiting for a couple of folks to respond to the poll. Great. Give you a couple more seconds and then I'm going to close the poll. Awesome. Okay. So share those results so folks can see what others responded to. So kind of no surprise on the first question, majority of folks have purchased sedans and passenger vehicles. So those are the vehicle types where there's the most electric and hybrid electric options available on the market. But 5 folks have purchased hybrid police cruisers, some with some school buses. So exciting to see what folks have already started working on in terms of electrification. And then a mix across on the second question in terms of interest. So we will touch on a lot of these different vehicle types today. I'm so glad to see that there's kind of a range of interest here. Awesome. All right, we'll stop sharing those results. Thank you all for humoring me with that exercise. It's really great to kind of just know a little bit more about who's joining us today. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Kelsey Champley, in our Municipal Collaboration Department to give folks an intro to the Greater Boston Police Council contract.
Hi, everybody. My name, as Meg said, is Kelsey Champley. I'm the procurement and contract specialist at MEPC, and I kind of run our work through the with the Greater Boston Police Council concerning group purchasing contracts, especially in the municipal side. If you want to go to the first slide. Yep. This is just an overview about Greater Boston Police Council as a whole, and then I'll get into our functionality as a partnership, and then kind of where we're at in our current alternative fuel and electric sphere and where we think it's going. So yes, the Greater Boston Police Council is a membership organization. It's built primarily to implement and maintain the Boston Area Police Emergency Radio Network, so the BAPERN network. That's made up of many individual towns that kind of serve and maintain that network. It's used in emergency situations and Disasters, it was utilized during the Boston bombing. It was utilized during, I believe, the explosions that happened last year before last, in the Boston area with the gas lines. It's been an integral part of the emergency response system. And the GBPC organization maintains that. So we partnered with them to create purchasing consortiums to essentially help municipalities buy the very expensive equipment and vehicles that you all have to buy to function. These contracts were made for both the membership organization as it exists, so the actual maintenance of the towns that do make up the radio network, and that's not going to change, but they are always members. So those would be our full membership entities, and those who just want to utilize the contracts and the accessibility that we have for them, those would be our associate members. There's no difference in full and associate and how they integrate with the contracts or how they have access to them or how they use them in any way, shape, or form. It's just kind of the labeling that is used for those. Membership is not limited to the entire state. Additional GBPC is the entire state or anybody who functions within that. But it also includes out-of-state entities. We have members from New Hampshire and other Rhode Island, Connecticut. Primarily, it's a lot of the New England states and municipal entities, but we've had people from New York and from California even be interested in joining and utilizing the contracts to become a member. And there's no limit on that. You are not barred from becoming a member if you are out of state. Yeah, you want to go to the next one? Yeah, okay. So this is kind of how we function. MAPC kind of functions as a middleman. We create the RFP, we run the RFP, we maintain the evaluation period and make sure all that's fine and, you know, T's are crossed, I's are dotted. And then we hold the contracts, essentially. And once somebody becomes a member, they have access to the entirety of the contracts that we have. They aren't limited to one. So we have, you know, vehicles, we have aftermarket, we have trucks, we have sweepers, we have alternative fuel specific vehicles and options. So typically we pride ourselves on being completely 30B compliant. A lot of municipalities have their own their rules for their own municipal purchasing guidelines, but 30B is kind of the bread and butter, is kind of like the law that kind of governs any kind of municipal purchasing, especially if it's a good or product. So we take great pains to be entirely compliant in that sphere and make sure that everybody, you know, is covered on that end. Our contracts typically run for 3 years, one hard year and then, or one guaranteed year, and then there are 2 options to extend past that. During that time period, contracts can be canceled anytime if anybody has any problems during that portion of time period that cannot be resolved. Contracts aren't extended. So, you know, there's oversight during that time period. For municipal ordering, we essentially wanted to create, and how it functions when people respond to the RFP is when they bid their items, if they're just bidding their vehicles, we wanted to create essentially a menu that towns could buy off of. So all of the products and all of generally it's the entirety of the line that the vendor holds or can provide for the communities, or the ones that are most advantageous to municipal buyers, are readily available all at once. And the towns don't have to do any bidding on their own. We've taken care of that. All of that falls under the RFP process for bidding. So towns essentially can go and contact the dealer, say that they want to use the GBPC contract, kind of have an idea of how much that costs, and the vendors then know which contract to purchase under. The price is already there. All of that is ready and available and verifiable under the publicly available pricing sheets that we have for our communities. After a community has made a decision about both the vehicle itself and any aftermarket equipment that wants to be added to it, so, you know, lights, computers, plows, etc., any kind of additional equipment that would go on that vehicle that isn't factory ready, that invoice and that full breakdown of what goes onto the vehicle comes to me. I verify all the pricing, that it's accurate and falls correctly under the contract, and everything that everything kind of, aligns appropriately. So we're all still maintaining that 30B compliance and oversight. I can do this at any point during the quoting process, especially if a town is concerned about, or if a procurement officer is concerned, especially about pricing, or where that pricing is coming from, where are these numbers coming from. Any back end sort of support we also provide in that process. Yeah, if you want to do the next one. Yeah, so this is where we currently stand on our alternative fuel vehicles. And I know we have several of our vendors here today here to discuss kind of more specifics about what they offer in terms of make, model, services, that sort of thing. But our current vendors under our all fuel electric contract are Alliance Bus Group, Central Dodge, Colonial Municipal Group, Donovan Equipment Company, EV Transportation Services Inc., Liberty Chevrolet, and MHQ. These cover transport vans, small scale electric vehicles, trucks, SUVs, sweepers, and things like that. The way we're looking forward to this, we don't have any of the higher or the larger scale. When I say larger scale, I mean like international size, Mack, Western Star, those scale vehicles. We don't have it currently under the contract, but we anticipate the market, as Megan said, is ever expanding. So we see a future in containing and bringing those items on the contract as well. The materials and the vehicles themselves were just not at a state to be bid at that point when we had the contract out. However, because we run on a 1 year with 2 optional year scale, we can cut contracts early in case the market changes as quickly as it has, to better encapsulate what the market is actually capable of producing and contains. So as we move forward with our contracts in the future, we're ready and available to adjust as the market expands, changes. Yep.
Awesome. So we are going to switch over to the vendor lightning round presentation. So hear from all the vendors, and folks will have, just a reminder, 4 minutes each, and Allison will be giving you a heads up when you're getting close on time. And for the vendors who are presenting, I will click through your slides, but I'm going to kick it over to Kelsey again to introduce our first vendor.
Have the list of who. Alliance Bus Group. Okay, this is Jim Bassari with Alliance Bus Group. Jim, if you want to take it away.
Good morning, folks. Jim Bassari with Alliance Bus Group in Hudson, New Hampshire, and just a little bit of history. I've been in the bus business since 1982 in New England, and had my own dealership, Northern Bus Sales, sold to Alliance Bus Group 7 years ago, and I've been running the New England office since then. I've worked extensively in Massachusetts with all the transit agencies. All the transit authorities have got vehicles from us. So buses is what we do. We have 2 vehicles on the consortium contract. One is a 14-passenger shuttle bus in the Turtle Top, and then we have a 14-passenger van built on the Ford Transit, and they're both electrified. The Turtle Top on the E450 is electrified with a motive, and the Mobility Trans vehicle is electrified with Lightning upfitters. So, and you can build the vehicle to your specifications. The contract has a long list of options, and if you're interested, I would offer myself as your reference point and help you spec the vehicle as to what would work the best for you. We can make them ADA compliant. We can change the seats. We can put destination signs in the vehicle, luggage areas, whatever we can build. So that's kind of it in a little bit of a nutshell. And I'll be available for any questions. If anyone needs wants to talk to me online or offline, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jim. Kelsey, do you want to introduce them as we go, or I can?
Feel free.
Okay. So next up, we have Clay Chase and Dan Mazurek from Colonial Municipal Group. I believe Clay is kicking off.
Yes, good morning. I'm Clay Chase from Colonial Municipal Group. I've been in the municipal fleet business for over 30 years. We are proud to offer over 40 types of hybrid vehicles on the Greater Boston Police Council, MAPC. We have approximately 75 hybrid vehicles in stock coming in for municipal towns, cities. We have a list of vehicles listed on the contract. Have over 42 vehicles on contract for the municipal vehicle side for hybrids and plug-in vehicles. With that, I'll let Dan take it.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Dan Mazurek. I'm the Northeast Government Sales Manager for Ford Motor Company, and so my role is to face all the large fleets in the area, as well as these beautiful and wonderful large contracts like MAPC. And we thank you for all your support over the years. As far as Ford Motor Company, we have just, you might have seen this in the news, we just increased our commitment to $22 billion in electrified vehicles. That was up from 11 billion. So in other words, we doubled our investment in that area, as well as you can see $7 billion in automated vehicles. You can see the little slide to the right there where it shows the Rouge Electric Center and how we are electrifying and investing in that area. So we are with you. We are here to support you. And in just a moment, I'm going to go to the next slide and start showing with the vehicles that we do offer both today and those that are, well, at least for those that we can discuss today anyways. So the first one that's on the road is the Mach-E, the Mustang Mach-E. And as you can see, it was notified as the 21 North American Utility Vehicle of the Year, fully electric. And it's just really exciting. It's out on the road and we're getting just great feedback on the vehicle. So this is on the road today, the Mach-E. It's a Mustang platform. But again, you can see it's a four-door SUV, fully electric, and it is that little version there is up to 200 miles range. There's also a version that will allow you 300 miles of range to take away any range anxiety, but it is on the it's in the dealer's lots as we speak. So anytime you need an order guide or ordering information, please see the dealers who are on the contract. Next slide. The next vehicle we're about to launch, and I'll speak to this as the order guide will be out and pricing late May. So late May this year, this is actually coming. It's about to be built and about to be ordered here this year. So it's very exciting. It's the Transit, full-size Transit. So some of you know this has been out for a while. We've had huge success with all the different options that it has. And this one will have just under 100 miles range. But again, you have that van now that we will pull into any vehicle, in any building, fully electric, easy to jump into and handle in buildings. So manufacturing places like that where they need to go in and load up, or parts depots, things like that, they can actually just pull right in. Next slide. And it shows 3 roof heights, 3 body lengths, cargo van, cutaway, and chassis cab options. So that's what this one comes in. Next slide. Just a little highlight. Some of the vehicles that we're launching now with the 21 F-150 will have over-the-air updates, just things that are new technologies. Next slide. And in late April, we'll be announcing this publicly. More to come on that, but it's just a little tease out there. And the last slide. I'll flip over to a few things that if you didn't know were already out there. We have the Police Interceptor Hybrid, the regular Explorer Hybrid. We have an Escape Hybrid, an Escape plug-in electric hybrid that is physically being built in April. So anybody who has orders out there right now, the orders are available to be put in and ordered as a plug-in hybrid. That adds another 30 miles to the vehicle. And lastly, the F-150 in the fall we launched has a hybrid that's literally available as we speak. And then the F-150 full electric will come out this fall. We'll have the information for that starting this fall. So these are things that are actually on our plate. They're actually out there available, or a couple of them are coming. And thank you for letting us join in here today. This is great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan and Clay. Next up, and just a reminder to folks, if you do have questions as folks are presenting, please feel free to add those to the Q&A box, and we'll get to those at the end. So next up, I have Eric Burmeister from EV Transportation Services.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you very much, Megan. Again, I'm Eric Burmeister. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Business Development for EV Transportation Services. We are the manufacturer of the Firefly Ssbe, which is an essential services vehicle, task specific. Next slide, please. We build this vehicle as a purpose-built, specific application, highly maneuverable vehicle to be able to get in and out of all of the areas that some of the larger vehicles that are on the market cannot get into. But we have all of the performance that you need that some of the other smaller vehicles that are available right now in electric do not have. We are highway speed capable up to 55 miles per hour, and our range is 100 plus miles per charge. Next slide, please. Some of the applications that we're designed for and the markets are obviously parking enforcement, security, any of your public works applications, property maintenance, utility reading, package delivery, last mile delivery, airports, seaports. Next slide, please. We achieve these task specific orientations into these markets through having specific type of bed platforms. As you can see, some of them are pictured on these pictures here: ladder racks, EMS type vehicles, refrigeration systems, flatbeds, dump beds, sanitation vehicles. So really, any one of the applications or markets of the people that shop on this contract, we fit the majority of those niches. Next slide, please. Again, we run all day without needing to be plugged in. We can travel at highway speeds up to 55 miles per hour. We have plenty of payload with 1,100 pounds. We have different seat configurations: left-hand drive, right-hand drive, center drive. Again, highly maneuverable, very lightweight, small footprint, allowing traffic to flow right around us. And we have a wonderful return on investment with a low initial purchase price and increased efficiencies. Next slide. Thank you very much. Our vehicles are available with our friends over at CMG, as well as other national dealers that are listed on the contract. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Clay Chase or any one of the people over at CMG. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. So next up from Global Sweepers, I have Chad Borman.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chad Borman with Global Environmental Products. We are a street sweeper manufacturing company based in San Bernardino, California, represented locally in your area by Donovan Equipment. As you see in that photo, we do build more specialty type sweepers. We call them purpose-built street sweepers, where we're building the entire machine from the ground up and not working to interface with a commercial truck. Next slide, please. Here are two models that are on contract. They are the Global M3 EV and M4 EV all electric sweepers. The M3 model is going to be your three-wheel high maneuverability sweeper used in a lot of municipal applications with high population, narrow streets, heavy traffic. And the four-wheel version, the M4 EV that you see in the lower right-hand corner, is actually a sweeper used currently by Department of Sanitation in New York City, all fully electric again. Next slide, please. These are Class 7 purpose-built sweepers. Next slide, please. And then the Class 7 ultimately means that we are 26,000 gross vehicle weight rating or larger. This slide is actually showing a bit of the configuration and how we work. Again, there's no engine in the machine. We are using a 210 kilowatt hour battery. And then the rear axle of the sweeper is driven off of a 160 kilowatt electric drive motor. Next slide, please. Right now, battery life from the manufacturer is 8 years or better. We are now transitioning into a liquid cooled battery, and they're anticipating battery efficiency loss of roughly 15% over the course of that 8 years. Factory is giving us a 5-year warranty on these batteries at this time. Technology changing quickly with the batteries to the point where we constantly in the sweeper world are looking to reduce weight. And from the time this was launched, the initial battery is 180 kilowatt battery. We're now up to the 210 kilowatt battery, liquid cooled, and have reduced the weight of the battery by 500 pounds. Next slide, please. I think if you click again, Megan, it might give some notes. There we go. The work autonomy on a full charge, the sweeper will go out and operate in a full shift from 9 to 11 hours. At the same time, it will take, it's about a 1-to-1 charge ratio to operation ratio. So 9 to 11 hours of operation without charging, but then you do need to charge back to full capacity for 9 to 11 hours. Next slide, please. We're using now just standard level 2 1772 charge system. It's a Clipper Creek brand. The only requirement that you actually need on site at your location is going to be a 240 volt outlet with actually a 50 amp receptacle. You can plug into that. The pricing that we have on the contract, I do believe actually includes that level 2 charger already. Click, if you will. There we go. We do have the availability to move into the level 3 supercharging system now, where it's actually going to cut that charge time from 2 to 4 hours. Next slide, please. And then this is just a specification on the current level 2 charger. Next slide. The traction system itself, we'd already hit. It's actually driven off of a 160 kilowatt electric drive motor. Next slide, please. Go ahead. And that's it. Just a quick overview on what we have to offer. Appreciate the time today. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chad. And last but not least, have Joe Berg from General Motors presenting.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Joe Berg. I'm the Fleet Account Executive for General Motors. I manage all of the government sales for the Northeast region. Next slide. So General Motors has what we call Vision Zero, a world of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. And this is an electric future that we envision, and we're moving very rapidly into that future. Next slide. So by 2025, we will have launched 30 EVs, all electric vehicles. Over 2/3 of those will be in the North America market. We're investing very heavily in this. We believe that the future of the internal combustion engine is on the way out, and that EVs, electric vehicles, and other technologies are what the future of transportation is. You may have seen some of the announcements that we've recently had, everything from all electric vans to all electric pickup trucks. These are vehicles that will be delivered to customers starting this year. But in this presentation, I wanted to focus on things that our local government and municipalities can utilize today. Next slide. And what we have to discuss today is both the EV and the newly announced both EUV. These are two variants of each other. The main driver or difference between the two is that the EUV is about 6 inches overall longer, which gives it more spacious interior. A lot of you may be familiar with the current EV that went through an internal redesign as well as some fascia redesign, but it's still essentially the vehicle that many of you know today. Next slide. The capabilities of the two vehicles, the EV is capable of 259 miles per charge and 250 miles for the EUV. Charge times on these are very comparable. With DC fast charges, you can get 100 miles of range in as little as 30 minutes. These can also be charged on a regular home outlet, 120 volt outlet, and that gives you about 4 miles of range per hour. Next slide. I want to show you some of the upfits and the ways our customers are creatively using these vehicles. These are actually orderable vehicles that you can get through General Motors or your local dealerships. Believe it or not, with these rear seat deletes, you actually get more cargo space in the rear than you would on a Chevy Equinox with the seats folded down. There's over 66 cubic feet of cargo room back there. Next slide. As you see, there's options for bulkhead, slide out trays, lockdown totes. These are through our partners, Adrian Steel and Knapheide. Again, dealers can order these today. They're out on the road, and I'm going to show you some ways that municipalities have been using these in the next slide. So on the left, you have a real police car that's at Hyattville, Maryland. They're using it for patrol. On the right, you have an upfit for park and patrol. We have Philadelphia, New York, Pittsburgh, among others, using vehicles like that. Next slide. And then what I'm excited to talk about and announce today is a 5W4. This is a special service vehicle. We've seen in the way that the customers were using those previous vehicles, and we've gone ahead and created a special service vehicle version of both EV and EUV that comes prepared for law enforcement and municipalities to add light bars or different radio controls, as well as surveillance mode. Next slide. And then I just want to show you a mock-up of how these SSVs could be used as detective cars, or however you would see fit for them. I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe, for joining. And that wraps up our presentation. So I will invite all of our panelists to turn their cameras on at this point, and we'll take all of your questions live. So if you have any questions that have come up as folks have been presenting, please ask them in the Q&A box. We can get a little bit of conversation going here. I guess just to start us off, I know, Clay, you responded to this one in the chat, but we had a question around the current delivery time for the hybrid Interceptor. If you want to share just a little bit more about that with everyone on the webinar.
We have over 40 vehicles of the utility for police use and unmarked in stock. We have a lot of the Chevy Volts in stock. It's about 12 to 16 weeks on an order right now. Some of them have been coming in quicker, but the demand has been high, so we have stocked our brought our inventory up for those vehicles.
Great, thanks, Clay. And then I have another question that came in from Joanne around the Fireflies, and if the folks from EV Transportation Service want to talk a little bit about whether or not there's any that have been deployed in Massachusetts or in New England.
So we have many Fireflies deployed across the country very successfully for a number of years. We do have the city of Andover in Massachusetts that has deployed our Firefly. Truth be told, we did not have incredibly strong representation in the Northeast until recently with the great folks at CMG, Clay Chase there. And so we expect to have those numbers increase quite considerably here in the next coming months.
Great, thanks, Eric. And then this question may be for everyone. I'm not sure if folks will have an answer to it, but attendee is wondering if there is anyone making electric fire engines yet.
MPC has an additional contract with the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, and that deals with like specific fire apparatus. So you're looking at aerials, pumpers, and ambulances. Given the current market, I haven't heard too much about it, but I wouldn't imagine it's far off in the future, especially if we're going on a grading scale. I would imagine ambulances would come prior to fire engines. But I haven't heard anything specific. If any other attendees know more about that, they can Yeah, okay. There's something in a Business Insider about California having a fire truck, electric fire truck. At this time, we haven't, but our contracts, again, those contracts also operate on a 3-year basis. So as things change, we could probably be seeing that emerging into our market as well. Sorry, my camera wasn't on. I was just kind of talking to a blank screen, but.
No worries. Clay, did you want to jump in on that?
We have the F-150 hybrid, and we're also the F-250 is coming out, as well as Chevrolet is launching a bunch of vehicles as well that can help in that market.
Yeah, I believe, sorry, I turned my camera on. A lot of ambulance bases are like Ford, Dodge, Chevy bases for vehicles, and then a lot of that is additional attachments and things for ambulances. So as that, again, as I said, as those fields change for just the base vehicles, we're probably going to see that emerge more and more on the ambulance scale. But time will tell. I imagine it's coming. We don't currently have anything on the contract for those, but I wouldn't. I see it happening within the next few years. It's just a matter of when that occurs.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Kelsey. All right, I think this is a question for Joe. Walter's wondering, will there be a demo model available for the Chevy EUV Ssbe?
Actually, yes, I ordered one yesterday and I'm excited to get it out. They have not gone into full production. Order and open for them last month. So I'll be one of the first, hopefully, in the region to have one. And you can definitely take my contact information down or reach out to me. And I'd be more than happy to bring it out and let people take a spin in it, get their hands on it. But yeah, we are going to have demo models out there.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. All right, just taking a look. A few more questions have come in. All right, question from Shelley around the street sweeper. Oh, I think it just got answered, so it just moved away from. She's wondering if there are any of the global environmental product street sweepers that are currently being used in New England and where those municipalities are located.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
The nearest that we have out in that area right now that's in use is actually with Department of Sanitation in New York City. They actually began this hybrid and electrification process over 13 years ago with global sweepers, and they have roughly, I think they're up to almost 50 diesel electric hybrid sweepers in their fleet already at sanitation. And then roughly 4 or 5 years ago, they had approached us about going full electric. First machine was delivered to them roughly a year and a half ago. And we're running all the testing. The good part of that is the technology between the diesel electric hybrid and the all electric sweeper, a lot of it overlaps. So it wasn't a brand new project when we introduced the electric sweeper. So they're in test with the machine there. We've got a machine actually operating in Tokyo, Japan. We've got machines on order on the West Coast. We've got them in Colorado. So they are actually in full production. And with Donovan, I know we do have another demo campaign that they're structuring for up in the New England states, probably coming up, I think, in April, if I'm not mistaken, they're scheduled. And that machine will be in that area where we'll bring it in, or we'll host a showing, and anybody can come and look at it. They can drive it and see what we have to offer.
Great, thank you. And then just another question. I have a feeling I know the answer to this one, but if the folks from Ford could speak to if there's any preliminary pricing for the e-Transits and the e-F-150s.
I'm sorry, it's Clay. I didn't hear what the question was.
Preliminary pricing for the electric Transits and electric F-150s.
Okay, they are listed on, I believe, your website. Let me just take a quick look here.
So while Clay's looking at that, we do, so for all of the vendors that are on the GBPC contract, we can share the link with folks afterwards, or Kelsey, if you want to put it in the chat to folks attending. All of the pricing details for the vendors are available on MEPC's website.
It is not on the contract yet. That's one that's supposed to be out for 22.
Great, thanks, Clay. And then I can answer this next one. So question from Chris about whether or not the contract includes anything for charging infrastructure installation or if it's just vehicle purchase. I guess, Kelsey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for most of the vendors other than the street sweeper option, which mentioned having that infrastructure available, infrastructure is not included on this. It's a vehicle centered contract, but one of the other efforts that MAPC has worked on over the years in partnership with the state has been the statewide contract VEH 102, which has categories, specifically category 1 for electric vehicle supply equipment. So that has everything from your level 1, level 2, DCFC from a variety of different electric vehicle supply equipment vendors. So definitely reach out to me if you need more information about a contract to purchase the charging infrastructure.
Yeah, to reiterate what Meg said, we don't have primarily the infrastructure portion of it, just because Massachusetts law is about breaking ground on anything. There's an entirely different set of rules and laws that govern that, and it's a whole other beast to try and manage. And this is not the kind of contract to combine that on. We could probably produce something with materials, but as Megan said, there's already infrastructure in place to assist you in purchasing all of that. So yes,
and
reach out to her
definitely,
if you're looking for that.
Definitely check out the statewide contracts, because there are vendors that you can purchase directly from for just the equipment, but also vendors that provide that turnkey service. So everything from assessing the site, figuring out what specifications you need, installing the infrastructure, and maintaining it after the infrastructure has been installed. All right, just taking a look, see another question from Martha that I'm just reading through. Yeah, so a question about sort of just managing what the available options are when it comes to battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and having a good place to send folks who are making that decision-making around vehicle purchases. And folks will see Kelsey shared the link to all of the vehicle options that are available on the contract that we spoke of today. So that is definitely a good starting place for what we've been talking about in terms of the specific makes, models, and prices that are currently available. And that's also where in the future, as Kelsey's been mentioning, when we do update the contract and put new vendors onto the contract, that information will all be available on our website as well. So not seeing any additional questions coming up, but I'll give folks another minute just in case there's anything else that we haven't answered. Yes, as folks are thinking, just to kind of wrap things up, my contact information and Kelsey's contact information are on the slide here. If you have questions about overall fleet electrification planning and charging infrastructure planning, please feel free to reach out to myself. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about that. If you have detailed questions about the GBPC contract and actually making purchases off of it, definitely reach out to Kelsey. She can help you out with all of that information and also put you in touch with the specific vendors that presented today and other vendors that are on the contract that weren't able to join us for the webinar this morning. But with that, I think I can wrap us up. I see a question actually in the chat from Pamela around MAPC putting together a list of vehicles and the information that we discussed today. Yes, so the link that Kelsey shared in the Q&A will bring you to like the full list of all of the options that are available. But one of the things that we are working on right now is more of a marketing one-pager for the contract that will have that synthesis of the information that's available. So that will be something that will hopefully be available in the next couple of weeks that we can share with folks who attended today.
Yeah.
I think they shared the link of where to go to get everybody's list of vehicles.
Okay.
But I don't.
And one last question actually just popped up in the Q&A. So Joseph's asking if there's any information on federal state grants for electric SUVs or pickup trucks. I think the first thing that comes to mind actually is the recent announcement to augment the state's More EV rebate program to provide a trucks option. I can't speak to the specifics of the exact vehicle classes as it breaks down, but that could be something potentially that would apply to a larger, heavier duty pickup truck in the future when those makes and models are available. If you are a green community, you can be eligible during competitive grant rounds for funding to not for the full cost, but for a portion of that cost for electrifying vehicles within your fleet. That would apply to that electric SUV option as well. And I think those are the main two, but happy to provide more information as well if you want to reach out to me directly after the webinar. Awesome, great. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists for taking the time to share information about their products today, and for all the attendees for joining us this morning. As I mentioned at the beginning, this recording and the slides will be available afterward, and we'll send that around to everyone. So thank you all so much, and have a great rest of the day.